April 28, 1993. Athens, Greece. It was supposed to be an ordinary night of basketball. A Greek League playoff game. Tension high, but nothing out of the ordinary. Players, coaches, and fans filled the small indoor arena, ready for another fierce battle on the court. But for one man, a single moment would change everything. A moment captured live, in front of thousands. A moment that left a promising career shattered, and a life forever altered. Boban Jankovic wasn't just any player. Born in Serbia, he was a towering forward known for his fiery passion and relentless energy. By the early 90s, he had become a key figure in Greek basketball, playing for Panionios, one of the country's beloved clubs. Fans loved his intensity. Opponents respected his skill. For Boban, basketball wasn't just a sport, it was his identity. But that same intensity would also be the catalyst for his darkest moment. The playoff match against Panathinaikos was always going to be heated. The rivalry between the two clubs ran deep, and this game had stakes. Panionios was fighting for survival in the playoffs. From the opening whistle, tensions were high. The crowd roared with every basket, every foul, every call. And Boban? He was locked in, scoring, defending, arguing with referees, playing as if everything depended on this one night. But as the game progressed, frustration began to boil beneath the surface. Late in the game, with Panionios chasing the score, Boban drove to the basket. Contact was made. He scored, or so he thought. But instead of rewarding him, the referee called an offensive foul. To Boban, it felt impossible, unfair. A betrayal in a game he had given everything to. In that split second, years of passion and frustration collided. And then, he did something no one could have predicted. In a moment of blind anger, Boban turned toward the nearest solid surface, a padded goalpost under the basket, and slammed his head into it. But what seemed like an impulsive act of frustration had catastrophic consequences. Boban immediately collapsed to the ground motionless. Teammates and opponents rushed over, shouting his name, but he wasn't responding. Within seconds, panic replaced adrenaline. The game stopped, and everyone knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. Boban had suffered a severe spinal injury. The blow shattered vertebrae in his neck, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. At just 28 years old, his professional career was over. Instantly, brutally, without warning. The incident shocked Greek basketball. Fans who had cheered only minutes before now wept openly in the stands. Boban's life changed forever that night, but he refused to disappear from the sport. From his wheelchair, he became a symbol of perseverance, attending games, mentoring younger players, and showing up for the team that once carried his dreams. For those in the arena that night, it was a reminder of just how thin the line is between passion and tragedy. One decision, one moment, and a career, a life, altered forever. Boban Jankovic never played another professional game, but his story has never been forgotten. April 15th, 1989. Sheffield, England. Thousands of fans gathered under a gray spring sky, buzzing with anticipation. It was supposed to be a celebration, a semi-final match between two giants of English football. But as history has shown us, sometimes the most ordinary days are the ones that turn darkest. That Saturday afternoon, what began as a football match would spiral into one of the deadliest stadium disasters the world has ever seen. This wasn't just any match, it was the FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. Football in the UK during the late 80s wasn't just a sport, it was an identity. Fans traveled miles, families filled the streets, and for most, the match was a rare escape from their everyday lives. Sheffield's Hillsborough Stadium was chosen to host the game, but the stadium had a history. Narrow entryways, outdated safety barriers, and a lower-tier terrace designed decades earlier for smaller crowds. Fans weren't worried, though. They had come to watch football, not to question infrastructure. And at 2 p.m., the energy outside the gates was electric. Tens of thousands gathering, laughter in the air, red scarves waving. But beneath the atmosphere, problems were already brewing. Outside the Leppings Lane end, the section designated for Liverpool fans, thousands of supporters were still waiting to get in. Entry was slow. Turnstiles designed for a fraction of the crowd clogged under the sheer volume of bodies. Police stationed outside grew concerned, fearing that the gathering mass could spark riots, a fear that loomed large in English football during the 80s. Instead of slowing the influx, they made a decision, one that at the time seemed logical. At 2:52 p.m., police ordered an exit gate to be opened, Gate C. It was meant to relieve pressure outside. When Gate C opened, thousands of fans surged forward, funneled into a central tunnel leading directly to pens 3 and 4, the standing terraces just behind the goal. These pens were already near capacity, but no one redirected the crowd, no one closed off the tunnel, and no one stopped the relentless flow of bodies pouring in. At first, it was just uncomfortable. People shoulder to shoulder, crushed so tightly they couldn't lift their arms. Some joked nervously, others tried to shuffle further in. But within minutes, that discomfort turned to panic. The pressure inside the pens began to mount, not from one direction, but from all sides. The crowd had become a living, breathing force, compressing inward with nowhere to go. By 3:06 p.m., just minutes after kickoff, the situation became catastrophic. People at the front were pinned against steel fences, unable to breathe, unable to move. Some tried to climb up and over the barriers, desperate for air. Others fainted where they stood. From above, fans in the upper tiers watched in horror as the sea of red below became a chaotic blur of faces, arms, and bodies. Security struggled to respond. Police, unaware of the true severity, initially believed they were dealing with rowdy behavior. Some even formed a line across the pitch, trying to stop fans from spilling onto the field, unaware that those same fans were fleeing for their lives. And all the while, the match continued, until it became impossible to ignore the disaster unfolding just meters away from the players. By now, panic had taken over. People screamed for help, waving frantically toward officials, medics, anyone who could stop the crush. Others tried desperately to pull their friends, their children, strangers, anyone they could reach over the barriers and onto the pitch. But for many, it was already too late. Inside the pens, oxygen was running out. Some parents lifted their children above their heads, praying someone would grab them. Others, trapped beneath the weight of dozens of bodies, slowly lost consciousness. What was supposed to be a football match had transformed into something unrecognizable, a scene of desperation, confusion, and unimaginable horror.
Its way through a vast crowd of people away to the left. There would seem to be, from where I'm sitting here, dozens of people now lying on the ground and being attended to by police and St John's ambulance. I saw 2 oxygen cylinders being carried down the touchline just below us minutes ago. Some of the people at the back, understandably through sheer fear, are trying to climb their way up into the upper tier once more. I've now seen 15 stretchers carrying bodies away.
By the time the crush subsided, 97 people would lose their lives. Hundreds more were injured, many left with trauma that would never truly heal. The Hillsborough disaster wasn't just a tragedy, it became a watershed moment in sports safety worldwide. Investigations revealed severe failures in crowd control, outdated stadium design, and catastrophic decisions by authorities. And yet, for decades, the families of the victims fought against misinformation and cover-ups, demanding justice for those who died that day. The Hillsborough disaster began as a normal Saturday in April. It ended as one of the darkest days in sports history, a day when thousands came to watch a match, and nearly 100 never returned home. Autumn 2014, Suzuka, Japan. A track revered for its precision, its fluid corners, and its unforgiving nature. Viewers tuning in saw nothing extraordinary. Another race weekend in the fading light of a damp afternoon. What they didn't expect was a single moment that would haunt Formula One forever. Jules Bianchi wasn't a household name, yet. He drove for Marussia, a team barely scraping the grid, often lingering at the back. But Jules was different. A Ferrari Academy graduate, quietly talented, universally respected in the paddock. He gave Marussia its first ever points in Monaco that year. No trick, no fashion, just raw skill turning the tide. On this rain-slicked Suzuka Sunday, he wasn't expected to make headlines. Instead, he towed Marussia around in visibility so poor that most were just hoping everyone got home safely. But nature had its own script. Typhoon Fanphone loomed off the coast, darkening the sky. Rain fell in sheets, constant, relentless, sneaking its way into every groove of tarmac. Visibility dropped, light dwindled. The track's S-curves, usually a signature thrill, became liquid nightmares. Drivers radioed concerns, exposed to aquaplaning in places that moments before seemed raceable. Suzuka was turning on them, and nobody saw just how brutal it would get. Then came Adrian Sutil. His car, spinning at turn 7, lost to the rain. Marshals emerged, cranes rolled onto the wet track to recover the car. Double yellow flags flew, meant to enforce caution, but no safety car. In racing, one slip can be fatal, and on a track like Suzuka with a recovery vehicle unshielded by barriers, a high-speed misstep could be catastrophic. Yet, despite warnings, drivers carried on, the pulse of competition pushing forward. And then lap 43 arrived. Bianchi, the rising star who'd quietly sized up adversity all season, came into turn 7. He carried too much pace into the waterlogged corner. In an instant, he was off the racing line, aquaplaning. Wheels spun. He couldn't control it. His car collided with the tractor, smashing into it in a grotesque and unthinkable way. That famed S-curve that swallowed tires in dry conditions? It had taken a man's life in rain. The silence that followed was absolute. For a few stunned seconds, viewers at home didn't grasp what they'd seen. A racing car disappearing under machinery? That isn't supposed to happen in a sport built around safety innovations. Onboard radios went quiet. Track control went red. Dread swept through the paddock, through every home watching. The broadcast lingered, and in that lingering moment, it became clear. Something irreversible had just happened.
That's exactly what I was talking about, isn't it? About those things on the racetrack and then other cars spinning off in exactly the same place. Happened to me on that very corner in '94.
Once the dust or rain settled, it was hours and then days before we learned the full extent.
The Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, a controversial race run amid monsoon-like conditions, and one that now sees the French driver, we're sad to report, Jules Bianchi, in hospital, where the FIA say he's undergoing surgery after suffering a severe head injury in a crash earlier this day at the Suzuka track. Now, the incident can actually be traced back to what happened to Sauber driver Adrian Sutil moments before, the German aquaplaning and then crashing into the tyre barriers. That was on lap 43. But then as recovery vehicles are trying to deal with his car, Bianchi, who drives for the Marussia team, is reported to have hit one of them.
Jules was in critical condition. It didn't look good. He would never return to the cockpit. In the weeks that followed, FIA reviews, debates, changes, but that moment is all that truly matters. A young talent gone, a sport stunned, a tragic pivot.
French Formula One driver Jules Bianchi has died of injuries suffered during last year's Japanese Grand Prix. The 25-year-old had been in a coma since the accident at Suzuka last October. He sustained severe head injuries when his car crashed into a recovery tractor in wet conditions and bad light.
Suzuka's S-curves continue to twist and turn. Weather remains unpredictable. Racing never stops demanding perfection, but memory does. We remember Jules Bianchi, not just the crash, but the boy who carried hope in a fight car, a driver whose life ended not with the checkered flag, but in a darkest, rain-washed moment that changed us forever.